Bukayo Saka! That is a goal! Wanyeri tries one!
George W. Bush once said, "No child left behind." But Mikel Arteta would say, "Every child left back." This is Not That Kind of Gooner, an Arsenal podcast, and we are coming to you after a 2-2 draw at PSV, which I am just so upset about. What a disgrace that we would draw at home against a team that we beat 7-1 in Eindhoven, and I am just pretending to get worked up about this match because, quite frankly, it was a bit of a snooze fest. Not much of an emotional investment in that. It was about as much of a dead rubber as a used condom sitting on the tracks of a train station while the red line to Shady Grove barrels in. And yeah, I don't know. We're gonna try to go through it, talk about some key points. We're not gonna do risers and fallers from it. To be quite honest, I just don't. We decided before we hit the record button here that it wasn't the best way to kind of parse through like the little bits of interesting stuff that happened throughout the match. But we're going to talk about the PSV home game. We're going to talk about some performances that stood out during that. And we're, of course, going to have probably a lengthy discussion on us getting drawn against Real Madrid in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, what that's going to look like, what that means for the season, and any potential hopes or hot takes we might have regarding that. And then, of course, we will preview Sunday's match at home against Chelsea and give that a little look-see and talk about what we think there is to come in that match. So we're going to do all that. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale and on Blue Sky at shamsdale.bsky.social. And with me is Drew, who you can follow on Twitter at GeeGeeKid and on Blue Sky at Supply and Demand Drew at bsky.social. Drew, how are you doing?
I'm kind of going over the intro and wondering how you're going to get people to visit DC with that kind of placement for it.
It's DA now, apparently.
Apparently it's going to be DA. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Trump. Other than that, yeah, I'm doing good. Good day at work. Post the PSV result. Yeah, looking forward to the chat with you, and maybe we'll get John on later if hopefully his dog's not up trucking again like a few weeks ago. But yeah, it's good to be back with you guys.
Yeah, hopefully it's a German Shepherd too. I love German Shepherds. Yeah, hopefully the doggo is doing okay. I wrote down that George Bush bit, so I do some planning before.
I gotta tell you, man, as someone with a degree in history and political science, I really appreciated it. Way to start us off strong.
I thought it was a great joke. I ran it by my wife. She didn't agree, but I went with it anyway. And
shocking stuff.
But yeah, that was a really funny moment in the match where I think all of us are just kind of sitting there, and then we all just collectively realized, wait, Kivior, Calafiori, Zinchenko, Lewis Skelly, Tierney, all on the pitch together. That's 5 left backs, which I thought was really funny. But before we kind of dive into some of the specifics of the game and a few performances that you and I both noticed, I mean, just what are your general thoughts on the match? Were you particularly invested, or was this just a fairly meaningless game, all things considered?
I don't have very many thoughts. Like, I would say I watched it, to full time, and my thoughts pre and post match, and as we kind of chatted before we recorded, where I said it would take something monumental for us to not go through. We could have fielded the entire under-21 side if possible, and I wouldn't have cared, to be quite frank. And I think that's how we should have handled it, given how the season was gone with injuries. Giving a lot of key players some rest that we were able to. I had zero investment in it. I don't care that we drew. If we lost, I wouldn't have cared either, quite to be honest. That 11, I mean, it was fine given the circumstances, obviously, but had we have lost, I don't think anyone could have been that annoyed, and I don't think most people would have cared, in all honesty. So, yeah, I mean, apart from the few individual performances we're going to go over, I don't have very many other thoughts other than that. It was good that we actually got a draw, for some kind of momentum push into the next round. I'm more excited about, chatting about Real Madrid. maybe even also going over the penalty retake / disallowed penalty, so to speak. Actually, so yeah, that's going to be a fun one. That was fun one at work, having to discuss that today, and a lot of people were kind of just like, that's absolutely nonsense. But yeah, for our match in general, I mean, I don't have very many thoughts. I think we did fine. Yeah, I don't want to give away kind of some thoughts on the players just yet. But yeah, other than that, I have no investment in it, and yeah, happy to go through, of course.
Yeah. Like I said at the top, we're going to skip risers and fallers just because, again, it's not efficient today. But there was and I'm kind of in the same boat, Drew. We're just like, I was watching the game, and just the whole time I was like, I'm really interested to see how some of these players do in new positions for them. But outside of that, just the name of the game for me was don't lose by 6. So, which, you know, which is why at points I was just like, what are you doing when, Ivan Perisic scored and like sprinted and like picked the ball up and like tried to run back to the, to the halfway point, and then what's his face, Tyrell Malacia, like picked up the ball after giving away a foul and like tried to slow down the game. I was sitting there just like, look, I get it. You guys played for teams that hate Arsenal. You're not going to win this game. You're not getting out of this round. Just relax. But yeah, outside of that, there's really just a couple of performances to pick through. I will say there was one thing that annoyed me, and this is probably one of my hotter takes of the season, but I don't know why Neto didn't play. Actually, no, I do know. I do know why Neto didn't play, and it makes me really annoyed because, we rolled this guy out previously. I think it was against Girona, right? When Raya couldn't play, we played Neto. Didn't give a good account of himself, and today, or sorry, not today, yesterday when we were up against PSV, we were up 7-1 on aggregate. I thought to myself, well, yeah, give Raya some time on the bench. Put in this guy who's supposed to come in and take the meaningless minutes off the starting keeper. I'm paid to think out worst case scenarios, and so in my head I was like, well, we're gonna feel real stupid if Raya plays 90 minutes and then someone accidentally like kicks him like in the groin or like goes full like JP Mateta on him and just, like cracks open his skull or something, and then he can't play against Madrid. So I was really hoping Neto would play. And the fact that he didn't just kind of tells me that we don't trust this guy to a level where we would rather risk our starting keeper for 90 minutes that he does not need to play over taking the risk that Neto concedes 6 to 7 goals and throws the tie away from us or for us. And so it just kind of begs the question for me of what was the point of bringing this guy in? And I understand that, we had to get a body in. You can't throw Tommy Setford or Jack Porter or any other teenage keeper in there. That's not fair to them. But just, I keep thinking back to the summer window, and I'm just like, how did we not do better than this? How did we not do better than bring in a cup-tied goalkeeper who clearly we don't rate that highly? Could we have done something in the January window? Maybe cancel his loan, at least bring in like another keeper that on short-term loan that we liked, or was Neto really the only option in the summer? I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions. I'm not in the room, but yeah, it's just a small nit I have to pick with this season where I think Neto is really a pretty big fail in terms of what we could have done at that position.
Yeah, you were right pre-recording when you said I was going to give some pushback. I was just going to say, yeah, honestly, for me, I mean, keepers are the position that get injured the least of any other position on the pitch. I mean, they get injured more in training than they do in actual matches, barring some catastrophic like collision, concussions when it happened to like Petr Cech as an example. Unless something like that, you should be. I mean, they're so protected as well by the laws of the game. I'm never worried about Raya getting injured unless he does something boneheaded that causes his own injury. I think I'm more concerned about him being reckless than another player doing it. And also, not for nothing, like, I think we're at the point now, and you also see it across Europe, where it's very, very rare that clubs don't start their first choice keeper in Champions League. I think if this was Europa League or even Conference League, and we were like in the Chelsea position where they heavily rotate that team for Conference League and keeping someone like Cole Palmer fresh for, Premier League or FA Cup, then maybe you would see Neto in that situation, but it's Champions League. And yeah, we were up 7-1, but I think we also kind of want to just keep playing Ryan, making sure he stays in form. And I'm totally fine with that. I think that's pretty much okay. So I'm not upset about it. In terms of the deal itself, I mean, again, it's very, very rare that you don't have a sharp drop off in your quality of keeper. I think someone like Kelleher at Liverpool or even Ortega at City are kind of outliers in terms of how good they are compared to the first choice options. So, I mean, yeah, Neto's fine. He's got experience, in European competitions at the highest level. I think it's fine at the moment. Like, I don't think it mattered for this season, but I think obviously moving forward that we're looking at, Joan Garcia for a reason, obviously. But for this season, I mean, yeah, no, I'm not. I think if anything, we were trying to probably avoid like another Aaron Ramsdale scenario where one of the keepers is wildly unhappy, and then we have to worry about keeping two keepers potentially happy, one from revolting, so to speak. So we'll see how it goes in the summer. But yeah, for this season, I was totally fine with them. I don't care that it doesn't play in Europe at all. However, if something did happen to Raya, I'm not sure I would trust him either. But it's always really tricky for a keeper to come in completely cold, just not playing, and perform if something does happen to your first choice keeper. So I understand the concern you would have if something did occur, injury wise. But other than that, I just don't care. So
no, those are all really fair points. I mean, it's far from our biggest issue. I think what I've done here is I've projected forward what things are going to look like if we do manage to sign Garcia and he is our backup. And I'm comparing now to then and like getting annoyed. I think that's what I'm doing, but
at least you're honest about it. Self-reflection is key. Beautiful.
I'm very introspective.
That's true.
I have a lot of flaws, but I'm an introspective man.
That's important. Most people aren't. So you're already ahead of the curve, I feel like. Most Arsenal fans aren't introspective, so just kind of targeting that as well. So I think you're all right.
Yeah. These are like some of the, I've had a couple moments this season where I've just looked at Neto and I've just been like, I'm so glad that we're not like stuck with this guy. Anyway, there's probably more time than we should have spent talking about him, but yeah, just a little nitpick that I want to get off my chest. But there was one performance that's way more significant than that. Actually, a couple, but the first one that I think we should go to is the man of the match, Raheem Sterling, which is not a phrase I thought I would be saying at any point in this part of the season. So Sterling started on the right wing. Yeah, it was on the right wing. That's right. The unforgettable front three of Sterling, Marino, and Tierney. I'm going to memorize that because that's going to win me some trivia at some point in the future. But yeah, so Sterling started on the right wing, had 2 assists, laid the ball off for Zinchenko's goal in the 6th minute, and then later on in the half, just, I think he kind of rolled back the years here where he burst forward. Well, first he trapped the ball really well on his chest, like right on the touchline from a lofted pass, and then managed to kind of like dribble around one player, burst past Malacio, got to the byline, and just lifted the cross back over the penalty area, and Rice headed home. It was a really impressive first half. The second half, I have different thoughts about, but before we get to what I think, I want to hear what you have to say about Sterling's performance. Do you think, I mean, it was definitely his best of the season, but do you think maybe this is something that is an indication of, any possible contribution he can have to this part of the season, or was this just a flash in the pan that we should just enjoy for what it is?
I mean, we hope it's some sort of indication that we're going to see more from him. And there was some rumblings previously about the fact that maybe he rushed himself back, or he was rushed back given the fitness concerns we had in the forward line. I think he wasn't actually fully fit up until very recently. And if that is true, what we saw from him against PSV actually would maybe sort of support that. He looked a bit more fit. He looked more lively. He didn't look like he was out of gas after 20 minutes. Looked a bit more agile as well. He was sharper in the first half as well. More of a throwback to what we saw from him, in his earlier years. I don't know if that's necessarily sustainable week in, week out, but again, we're edging closer to the point where Martinelli's back into the 11, Saka's back into the 11, so it might not need to be. If he can give you that kind of energy for 20 to 30 minutes off the bench, while Saka builds up his own fitness or Martinelli builds up his fitness and throughout their recovery, that's kind of all we would really need him for, and I think that's totally fine. But it gave me a little bit of hope. I don't have much more to say about it. Apart from that, I thought he played well again. I agree with you. He played well in the first half. I would think that tail off in the second half probably, again, made some sense if those memorings are correct in terms of his fitness. But again, that also kind of supports the fact that I think sometimes players just, not everybody, but some players do just hit that wall when they hit 30. Not everybody does. Some do. Freddie Ljungberg did, and that was really sad to see because he was lightning quick, in his prime, and all of a sudden he can't sprint, 30 yards or whatever. It looked like he's going to keel over and have a coronary. So, I thought it was encouraging from him. But again, I think the big thing for me now is when everyone is fit, bar Kai, if we can count on that from him for between 15 and 30 minutes, any given sub appearance, that's exactly what you want to see, that kind of energy, that kind of drive. So I think in a smaller window, it's a little bit encouraging, but we'll just kind of have to see how it goes, moving into, the weekend against Chelsea. So,
like I said, it was a great performance in the first half. Second half, there were just moments where he was kind of walking around a little bit, definitely was gassed. I do think it's, I don't want to say pretty clear, but the likeliest explanation for the Sterling that we saw early in the season especially is that he wasn't fit. And, that would make some sense considering, he was training separately back when he was at Chelsea, and, just he seemed to kind of come in just really lacking match fitness for a while. And this is the most fit that he's looked. For some reason, sorry, there's a fire truck driving right now. But this thought I've had whenever I see Sterling, considering this drop off at 30. The guy's been playing since he was like 17, 18, right? At the highest level. He has so many minutes in those legs. And I always look at him, and then I'll look at Nwaneri, who had to, play a lot of minutes this season, or, more minutes than we've expected. And, it just kind of makes me think let's take our time with Ethan. Let's build him up nicely and gradually, but let's not do to him what Liverpool and City did to Sterling. But it's hopefully Sterling can contribute at some form. I'm kind of in the same mind as you, where we're looking at a guy who can maybe come off the bench for the last 20, 30 minutes of a match and hopefully provide some sort of output. Unfortunately, that tackle at the end that got him yellow means he's going to miss the first match against Madrid, which probably isn't the end of the world, but maybe we'll be in a situation where we could have used even Raheem Sterling. Anyway, another player who was really impressive was Zinchenko, who played at the right 8 position, scored the first goal. Really lovely curler from him. And, I just kind of found myself wondering, watching him kind of, do these little mazy dribbles and play these nice balls in and look actually kind of dangerous every time he tucked into the right half space. I found myself wondering, have we overlooked him in some way this season? Is this potentially an option that we could have played at right 8 or left 8, when we were missing Odegaard or when we needed to handle a low block? Is Zinchenko someone that we could have gone to? So is that, what did you make of Zinchenko's performance? And, is that something that you've also found yourself thinking, that maybe Zinchenko is an option that we could have used in one of the 2 8 positions?
I mean, he's dealt with injury issues kind of all season, so I think that's probably one of the reasons why we didn't consider it further. I think if he was fully fit, we probably would have seen it sooner because we know that he played as an 8/10 when he was on loan at PSV. And then we also know that he's played centrally for Ukraine for the national team, sparsely. It's been long said that he's one of the more or one of the top 2 or top 3 most technically gifted players at the club. So we know he's got it in him to actually do those kind of mazy runs to kind of control midfield, to kind of weasel his way through the lines. I'm somewhat surprised at the performance per se. But I think it's definitely kind of almost like Sterling. It's encouraging that we have maybe another option now because now that when everyone is fit, you assume he's just never going to play at left back, and that's fine because I think that the other preferred options are more defensively sound than Zinchenko is, but he is, again, he has the technical quality you want from a central player. He has that creative ability. He knows how to control the ebb and flow of a match. He finds space between the lines quite well. As you can see, he's got a decent shot from range, of course. So that can be encouraging to kind of mix and match throughout the season, depending on what we need in midfield. So I'm happy with the performance. Obviously, I don't think we're going to see it often from the start. You might if say we have after the first leg against Real Madrid, say it's it's an absolute. Say everyone's just gassed for whatever reason. Maybe when we rotate the match after that in the league, if it's a match, off the top of my head, I don't remember who we play after Real Madrid after the first leg, so I'm not even quite sure. But maybe you see it in something like that. But I still think when everyone's fit, he probably isn't going to start. But if something happened injury-wise again, which at this point I wouldn't ever discount, when it comes to the midfield, maybe it's something we could look at again. For the rest of the season, one of those kind of things, or maybe even it might extend his shelf life at the club moving forward, depending on the business we do in the summer. I'm not quite sure, but for a base value, I liked what I saw from him. Not necessarily surprising per se, but maybe ironically, it ended up coming at the right time, given the fixture list for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and Zinchenko isn't exactly a player who is long for this club anymore. I'd be shocked at this point if we didn't sell him in the summer. So to an extent, I get not using him, although I also, we kind of are in a win now situation, even with the injuries. So there is also that to consider where, maybe you do want to use, if he is the best option. I'm not saying he is, but, you would want to use the best option in those situations, depending on the game state and, the matchup and all that. But yeah, I tend to think that I tend to agree where maybe he's not the best option simply because, it's very well known that Zinchenko isn't the most reliable player defensively in the team. Although maybe that's been a little overrated at this point. But yeah, good performance. I think probably the last thing from the PSV match that's worth talking about is just whether there was any room for experimentation at 9, right? Because we started Merino there, and then I think Trossard moved to the 9 after we that's right. We took off Partey, and then Merino dropped to 6, which was not great. And then we put Merino at center forward. And I guess my question to you is: do you think that because of the situation we found ourselves in with this match being a dead rubber, do you think that was an opportunity to maybe try Martinelli or maybe even a Calafiori at center forward? Or do you think the Merino thing is something that we're actually going to persist with even with Martinelli back moving forward to the point where, we're just doing what we're going to keep on doing?
Yeah, I think we're just going to keep seeing it because I mean, theoretically, Mourinho gives you something that's closer to what Kai would give you than Martinelli would. If you're going more, more incisive, more direct, more counterattack based, I think you could maybe see Martinelli as a 9. That would actually make sense. And maybe that's something we can posit when we open up the discussion about Real Madrid later. But I think in terms of someone who will drop deeper, who is good in the air on both sides of the ball, who has some decent instincts and late runs into the box. I think that's why we're going to persist with Marino. We could have used one of the kids, maybe for the last 15, 20 minutes because it was a dead rubber, potentially, sure. But no, I think if anything, if we're going to keep relying on this as a solution for the rest of the season, whether we should or not is another discussion. But I think if that is what we're going to be doing, it only makes sense to continue to play him in that role to get him the max amount of minutes, to try to get him to ease into it even more, because we're going to need him there for the rest of the season. That's how we're going to persist. So, yeah, I'm not too fussed about not trying something else. And we've tried Martinelli as 9 as an experiment before. So if we do kind of transition to that, it wouldn't be anything relatively new to him. Maybe something like a Calafiore or we've also done Trossard essentially. So I don't think we've that we have a ton of new options left. I think we've at least in bit parts seen most of the ones we were probably going to try if we ever were going to in the first place. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I get it with Martinelli, right? Because he's just coming back from injury, and you don't want to throw him into a demanding position like that. Especially when he's just trying to work his way back to fitness. I can't lie. I think it would have been a little fun to try Calafiore there for 15 minutes, especially because, I'm thinking back to that one bit of interplay that he had with Lewis Skelly and Tierney, where Lewis Skelly played him in on goal, and it looked so natural for him. But I'm not saying Calafiore should just permanently be a center forward, but he's just such a multifaceted player where I just kind of find myself wondering if you can really put him anywhere on the pitch at this point. But maybe that's the point to him playing at left back. That kind of lets him go where he's needed, and the magic kind of wears off. If you put him somewhere else, but. Yeah. All in all, not really anything I'm fussed about. I do think we're going to move away from Marino at 9 as the season progresses, and hopefully, as people manage to stay fit, we do have kind of enough to play a starting front 3 now without Marino. So I do think we are going to move towards that. I still think Marino probably has a couple weeks as the center forward left before we're ready to take that step. But yeah, so that was a PSV match. A little bit of nothing. Anything else you got from the game, or do we want to talk about Real Madrid now?
No, there's definitely nothing more I want to say. I think I probably said more than I expected to.
Yeah.
I think the chat about Real Madrid is probably a bit more enticing. What I would say, I guess, to start it off, is I actually prefer this over getting Atleti, 100%. And I tweeted that out yesterday after that result. I guess my initial thoughts kind of are, Atleti showed you that they're just as good as Real Madrid. They're only a point back of them in La Liga. They took them, to penalties in Champions League. It was an incredibly close match. But they also showed that if you're good structurally without the ball, you can really kind of hamper how Real Madrid play. And I think that's why I would rather play Real, because Atleti can be so good defensively, and we genuinely struggle against teams that are very good in a low block / in a block that can press well, or that just kind of can shut down your key attacking players. In contrast, Real Madrid are very disjointed at the back. And I do think they can be gotten at if you're good on the defense side of the ball, which we know we are. So initially, I think that's kind of my I guess, to open the discussion with a hot take, because I actually think, A, I'm happier with getting Real Madrid over Atletico Madrid, and B, if we get Saka, Martinelli back fit, and everyone is in some kind of form, right, we have a decent chance to actually get past them. I think that might seem a little bit crazy to some listeners, but crazier things have happened in Champions League. But I have a lot of faith in how well we defend, and you saw how Vinicius Junior got shut down completely against them. It might require a few switches in the 11. I don't know if I would trust Thomas Partey actually trying to track Jude Bellingham for 90 minutes, because
No
he can
party.
because he can galaxy brain it. And ironically enough, I think might be a scenario where you could almost maybe see, depending on who's available, you could potentially see something like Rice at 6 and something like Odegaard and Nwaneri as a double 8 to give that quick burst of pace for us to be more direct, better engines, or you maybe go with Jorginho, who will just sit deep like he always does. He's smarter when it comes to being able to read the channels, and he's more reliable on the ball and with his distribution out of the back, those kind of things. So it might lead to some interesting questions, but yeah, but basic value to start it off, I prefer Real Madrid over Atleti. And I know some fans might think I'm nuts, but that's just kind of where my head is at the moment.
No, I mean it's a matchup thing. You're not saying that Real Madrid are a worse team than Atletico, but like it's a matchup thing. No, I agree 100% with you. We're like, it's funny. I saw some Real Madrid fan tweet something to the effect of like, Arsenal aren't like a terrorist low block park the bus team. We're gonna cook, and then everyone's like, "Do you know who we are?" But the thing is, right? Atletico Madrid are the bane of terrorismo football, right? They were born in the darkness. We merely adopted it, right? So I think going up against them, especially without Havertz, especially probably I think Saka will be back, but he's not going to be at 100%, right? Without Gabriel Jesus, it's going to like that would be a nightmare for us because they would just sit back and then they'd hit us on the counter with Griezmann and Julian Alvarez and a couple other pretty good pieces that they have there. Whereas with Real Madrid, I think you're right. It's really just a matter of defending well, riding your luck a little bit, as is kind of required against a team that has 3 Ballon d'Or candidates at any given time in it. And, there will be openings for us to exploit, right? So I don't want Jorginho anywhere near this, actually. Jorginho has kind of hit party status for me, where, I still think he has his uses, but for me, put Rice in front of Saliba and Gabriel for both legs. And then if you want to play Merino at left 8 because he's familiar with Real Madrid and because he maybe gives you a little bit more box presence, fine. If you want to play Nwaneri at the left 8 alongside Odegaard, that works for me as well. But I think a non-negotiable for me for those 2 legs is to not put Partey or Jorginho at 6. Put someone who, at the very least, can just run with Bellingham and really shore up that midfield so that when we do inevitably get countered on, it's not someone jogging back behind 4 of the most dangerous footballers of the decade.
Which is exactly. I literally played it in my head of watching Partey give possession up and just stand there.
No, that's 1-0.
Yeah, and lollygagging his way back into the box, only to reach the D after they're celebrating their goal, and I would just rage and flip my desk. So, yeah, I probably would agree with you. I think I would have slightly more assuredness about Jorginho than I would Partey, but I agree overall. I think Rice would be the most sensible thing to do for this for the 6. And I don't think it's wild to say you could use Nwaneri and Odegaard together in the same midfield, depending on how Saka has gotten on fitness wise. And I think it's tough because if he's not fully fit, you could postulate that maybe Sterling would have started there if he wasn't on that 1 match suspension given the yellow. So I think that makes it a little bit tricky. Yeah, there's kind of a lot of questions. And the other question would be, are we starting Ben White and shifting Timber at left back? Because A, you have Rodrigo at right wing, but B, you have Fede Valverde, who's been, for me, in my estimation, one of the best players in Europe all season long, and he's currently deputizing at right back. And the way he gets forward, we need someone on that left side of the defense who we know can contribute and not just be made a complete fool of. And as much as I enjoy Calafiore as young as he is, and he has a physical presence and he's got some decent pace, he can get caught out so easily if we were to play him there against Real Madrid, he's going to get absolutely roasted for 90 minutes. So, yeah, I think there's a few questions we could mull over in terms of the kind of team we want to put out. But I do think, and I think it's going to, my biggest question going into that match is, will Arteta be willing to surrender some of the ball to give us more stoutness in defense and actually be able to take Real Madrid's opportunities away on a break, because they're so good when they get into space. If Vinny gets 1v1 with someone, they're finished. If he gets into any space, it's finished. It's either than Mbappe. Mbappe is going to run the channels. He's going to constantly test Saliba and Gabriel. And if he gets by, you're looking at a potential red card disaster that we've skirted with before previously, this season. Rodrigo, same thing out on the right. If he gets isolated into space against his man, you're kind of in trouble. So we're going to have to be... I just don't think we can demand the ball in that slow, methodical possession, because Real Madrid know how to press. They press quite well in the mid block, and if we turn it over and they're out off to the races, we're going to lose. I think it's that kind of simple. So I just think Arteta's going to sit back and really have a conversation with himself and the staff about the best way to go about this. I don't think we can be the team to demand it all this time around. I think we have to be okay with that. And we've seen it before where we're good sitting back, even in the Arsene Wenger era. When we went to Real Madrid and won 1-0 with that Henry goal. That was a goal that was on the break. And obviously there was a huge amount of class from Henry for the solo run, but it wasn't after a large spell of possession. They turned it over, we were off, and then Henry did what Henry always did. So I think we're going to have to roll the clock back a little bit into some kind of a performance kind of like that, which, by the way, included Philip Senderos at center back. So if we can actually keep R9 quiet at the Bernabeu with Philip Senderos in defense, I feel like we can keep Mbappe and Rodrigo and Vinny and Jude Bellingham at bay with a much better defensive partnership in Gabriel and Saliba. So, yeah.
I think the Bernabeu is going to look like our second half at City. Honestly, I'm kind of expecting that either way, unless we're down big when we go to the Bernabeu. But in terms of like your question about what we do on the flanks, Valverde is the single reason why I wouldn't play Martinelli at center forward against Madrid. I would put Martinelli at left wing.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
And just have him, obviously he has his attacking duties, but on top of that, like, he's going to have to follow Valverde up and down the flank, because I think I would keep Timber right back and I would put Lewis Skelly at left back. And I know that's a massive ask of an 18-year-old, but I think
that's huge. That's massive. Yeah,
that's the biggest ask you make of an 18-year-old, and I get that, but I just feel like he has the personality to deal with it, even if it doesn't go well for him. I think he has enough about him where I don't think he's going to get skinned alive or anything, but also I think, if Rodrigo does get past him and does manage to score, while Lewis Skelly is trying to mark him, I think that's something that he'll recover from and he'll be fine. It's not going to, destroy his confidence or anything like that. And just, I don't know what shape White is going to be in a month. The White that we saw against PSV looked very not up to speed, right? And that's understandable. He just came back from injury. So I'm not like holding that against him or anything, but I just think Vinny is the slightly more threatening player in my mind, and Timber is, really a shutdown defender, I think. So I'd rather just put him on Vinny and then put Lewis Skelly on Rodrigo and just hope Martinelli can really do his best to nullify the impact Valverde might have on that, and see. And, like, Lewis Skelly will have Gabriel there to help with the coverage. He'll have Rice hopefully playing 6 or even left 8. I think Rice at left 8 will be helpful as well. And Saliba has shown that he can, at least for parts of a match, handle Mbappe if he has to be one-on-one with him. So Again, this is playing Real Madrid. Like you're just gonna have to take risks somewhere, and I think that's where I'd want to take the risk. And then I'm just trying to think about do you what does their midfield and defense look like these days? I feel like whenever I think about Real Madrid, I just think of that front three in Bellingham. But I mean, I know they started Modric against Atleti. I mean, they've got Camavinga. I think Tchouaméni is suspended for the first game.
Yeah, he picked up a yellow. So they started Modric and Tchouaméni in midfield, and they had Bellingham, Rodrigo, and Vinny behind Mbappe.
Mm-hmm.
The defense was the back four was Valverde, Asensio, Rudiger, and Mendy, who is actually injured. He's out for sure. He might be out for both legs. So that's actually kind of a bonus in our corner. They don't really have a really good deputy for that. I think they're probably going to go with. They'll probably go with. I don't know. It's a toss between Camavinga or Alaba. But Alaba has not been that same Alaba that he was at Bayern. Not even remotely. He's half the player at this point. So, yeah, it's going to be tricky. The thing is with that midfield battle, if you get, and the thing is also Ancelotti is so good at countering his opponent as well. So he could throw out something that we're not expecting, depending on our own concerns in terms of fitness of who's available. I imagine, though, given what you see from us typically, and kind of the gravity of it all, I think he'll probably go with experience. I think he'll probably start Modric. And yeah, he's fallen off in terms of like agility wise. Obviously, he's 38 now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But he understands space expertly. His weight of pass is still, damn near perfect. And then you have both him and Valverde on that same right side of the pitch, with Rodrigo being fed by both of them, if not Bellingham, who will drift into either the right half space or the left half space. That's a lot to contend with, and that's why I would be worried about Lewis Skelly, because you're looking at Valverde will always overlap if he can, and if not, he'll come in, he'll make a inverted run and try to look at goal himself. You've got Modric who can pull some strings or even get forward. You've got Rodrigo who's going to be all over the place. As much as I think Lewis Skelly has come on so well in recent weeks since really breaking into the team, he still is so susceptible to making the wrong pass or to picking up the wrong man or to giving possession away when in possession himself and against a team that's that intelligent off the ball, who know how to press quite well. I would, and given his age profile, he's still very, very young, I would be a bit worried about him playing. But again, a lot can happen between now and when we play them. We don't know what further injuries they may suffer, what form looks like. But what I would say is that it's been a pretty regular occurrence in Champions League this season where Rodrigo has been the better of the two between him and Vinny. Against both legs, against Atleti, Vinny did not play well. It was Rodrigo and Bellingham and Valverde that kind of carried the team, and even Mbappe was kind of a bit off of it. So but this is kind of what you want, right? Like trying to have these conversations by going up against, a team who own this tournament. This is basically their trophy every season, and it's up to anybody else to kind of prove them wrong, which is kind of what you wanted. A lot of fans are talking about, like, this is where we want to be back to being. So I'm enjoying the conversation, trying to figure out what we're going to do, but it's definitely a tough ask. I mean, I would have less questions about it if we were fully fit and stuff. But I think your concern with White at right back is a real one, considering. But I think between now and the match, which is 3.5 weeks from now, a month from now, you would hope that he would find his fitness by then in a month. If he can't find his fitness in a month, it's probably a bigger issue that we don't know about. So assuming he does, that's another good option we have. And I think at this point, just having options is it's light years of where we were, like a month or two ago.
It's really nice to have options, honestly.
It is. It's nice to have them back again.
We don't even have to talk about playing Party at right back. This is so great.
I mean, if we play Party at right back against Real Madrid, just pack it up.
knocking on all the wood right now.
Please don't put that juju out there, for God's sakes.
So assuming we go with White at right back and Timber at left back, I don't hate it. I have one concern on either side. The first concern I would have is, do you think White would be able to cope in a one-on-one matchup with Vinny?
Yeah, I do because I think White. I love the fact that Timber is aggressive. He wants to force the player to get past him, right? But I think White is better at reading his marker and knowing how to shepherd them. And I think we're going to need that against Vinny because Vinny relishes the chance to go up against more aggressive right backs because he'll know how to get past them quite quickly. He reads that very, very well. So I kind of feel like I would rather White counter that than Timber try to be really aggressive in the tackle, and all of a sudden Vinny just dances around him, and we're out of right back for however long that passage of play goes for.
Yeah.
And also, not for nothing, I know Timber's he's shown himself to be pretty solid in the air, but White is a better aerial defender than Timber is, certainly with marking on set pieces as well. And it's not they aren't a massive threat in the air, but they do have some pieces that are decent with it. Valverde is decent in the air. Asensio is actually pretty good in the air. Rudiger, Bellingham. So having that additional safety net on set pieces, both attacking and defending, I think is definitely not a bad thing. So.
Yeah. And then on the left-hand side, I'm not worried about Timber defensively out there, but I guess the one concern I would have is Timber's ability to kind of play up the flank, right? Being right-footed, I'm worried that he would pass more internally, and then that would kind of that would impact Martinelli's ability to impact the game, if that makes sense. So, are you worried about that, or do you think like that's a trade-off that's at least worth, not putting Lewis Skelly or Calafiori in the firing line like that?
Well, I think it would be a bit of both. I think you're trading off some ability to play down that left-hand side for more defensive stoutness, but on the other hand, it would also depend on who we're playing in midfield. If you do see something like Rice at 6 with Nwaneri and Odegaard as a double 8, you would assume that Nwaneri, being left-footed, would be able to drift into those left half spaces or down the left-hand channel and actually offer some direct support for Timber if he was to play there, and then kind of spring an attack that way. So, yeah, again, I don't know how. I guess we're gonna have to build the 11. I mean, if I was Arteta to this question, I would be building my 11 from the back, saying solve this issue and then kind of build everything else surrounding our defensive structure against Real Madrid. You kind of have to, and even though they're also disjointed at the back on their own right this season, they're still on their day. They're so lethal and attacking. You have to give yourself a chance defensively, or else you're not going to have a chance across two legs. So that's kind of how I would look at it. And I guess if I was going to play Timber at left back, I would probably take the risk and actually play Nwaneri at left 8 with Odegaard at right 8, and then have Rice at 6. That's probably what I would do. That's probably the risk I would take for that match. But Nwaneri has again shown himself to be so good in transition. He also presses quite well. He runs he covers a lot of ground. For even if he comes off in the last 20 minutes, then you can maybe bring Marino on for 20 minutes if he's not playing at center forward or something. I would probably that would be my risk, I guess, for that for the 11.
Yeah. So and your front three, assuming Saka is fit, would be Saka, Trossard, Martinelli.
Yeah. I think, but I would just the one thing I would have to do or hope for, I guess, would be hope that they have more license to be mobile instead of just kind of chaining them into their zones on the pitch. Just allow them freedom, right? And that's again one of the things that you think back to against our record against Real Madrid, which is actually pretty favorable, is we had so much interchanging play in our forward line. Again, you think to that Henry goal. Look how the goal started, and look where it finished, and look where he was. Look at the other pieces that were involved and look where they were. I think if we're going to be able to actually capitalize on how disjointed Real Madrid can be defensively, we have to focus on that on our end and allow them to be mobile. Don't just chain Saka to the right wing. Don't just chain, Martinelli to the byline. Don't just chain Trossard to the center forward space. Allow them to interchange. Allow them to kind of pull Atleti out if you can. I think that's the only way that'll actually work. But again, the thing with Trossard is you never know which Trossard you're going to get.
Yeah.
So I think under the best of circumstances, it wouldn't be a bad shout, but I also wouldn't be against starting Marino there, and depending on how Nwaneri got on in that match, you could essentially then move Marino back to the midfield and then bring Trossard-Arn as a forward, depending on how it goes, in theory.
Yeah.
So some flexibility there as well, tactically. But I guess to start, I would probably go with that front three. And then really ask, again, like you say, ask Martinelli to really kind of not just work hard off the ball to kind of shackle Valverde, but also give Valverde some questions when we're on the ball, because Martinelli's got so much pace when you kind of let him go. And same thing with Asensio. Asensio's done really well since coming in defensively for Real Madrid, but he's also sometimes can be susceptible to the odd poor pass or poor position, and that's why I kind of want those three players to just be able to just move about the cabin, as it were. Take their seatbelt off, while the plane's flying, and just do whatever it takes, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Just give them the freedom to go where they think the space is and where the opportunity is. Yeah, I get that. Do you think that maybe Lewis Skelly is an option at left 8 for this?
I mean, maybe. Yeah, it's something I thought about while we were chatting, but I didn't mention it. But I don't think it's the worst shout ever. Yeah. Obviously, and I'd be. You'd maybe say so as well, because I feel like he's got a slightly more physical side to his game than Nwaneri does, and maybe you want that against Modric, who, if he does play, would probably be playing as the right center midfielder. So, yeah, playing Lewis Skelly there and maybe kind of wearing Modric down might actually be to our benefit. So yeah, that's another good shout as well. And then maybe you have a scenario where you could play Martinelli at 9 and play Nwaneri at left wing.
Yeah.
And play Saka at right wing, depending. And, kind of just mix and match things and do something that maybe Ancelotti won't expect, and maybe things that we won't expect. I think if we're going to have the best chance of getting through to semifinals, I think we're going to have to do something that is a bit out of our wheelhouse and just throw a surprise or two in there. Maybe this is the time to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just, I think, in addition to, maybe being able to give Modric a little bit of trouble, I think also Lewis Kelly offers something just with, being able to dribble, to carry the ball the way he does, and force some decisions out of the Real midfield and defense. I don't know. I think there might be something in that, but the nice thing here is that there are still options in this team. There are still things that we can do. Although, what I think Arteta is going to do is he's going to go very aggressive in the home leg. Like I feel like he might keep Partey at 6 and put Rice in at left 8 and just press the hell out of Madrid, like for the first 20-30 minutes of the game, and see if they can get anything out of that. And then we just have to cross our fingers and hope that we don't get hit on the counter. I could see Arteta doing something like that, where he just kind of wants to send a message where we're not scared of Madrid, and we're going to play aggressively. We're going to take those risks because we back our ability. I don't know. That just feels like a very Mikel Arteta thing to do. But I am really excited about this game. Either way, I know the odds are against us. I mean, my dad texted me 20 minutes after the shootout was over and said, Madrid are going to destroy you. And I said, thank you for that. But I think this is a Real opportunity. Ha ha ha. I think this is a real opportunity.
Christ. Goodbye. Let's continue. I know you did.
But I think this is a real opportunity to really. I think this is a game that we could really use in our development, and this is an opportunity for us to test ourselves against the best team in the world, and then really see how we stack up. Even though we're missing a couple key pieces, even though we might be, just kind of suffering from what has been a rather torturous season. I think this is a great opportunity to really just kind of see where we are in our development and really get that experience of playing, the almost the biggest possible game, under the belts of a lot of these players, because these are the matches that we want them in on a consistent basis. So, I was really excited last year when we played Bayern, even though it ended the way it did, because I think, kind of that's an experience that players need, if they are to be challenging at the highest level, right? It needs to feel routine for these guys to play Manchester City, to play Real Madrid, to play Bayern Munich, to play Barcelona, and all these other big storied clubs, because those are the teams you have to beat to the silverware. So, I'm just really excited. It's a glamour tie for sure. But how are you? Do you match that level of excitement, or are you more worried?
No, I mean, I'm excited. Like, it just kind of is what it is. I given how this season has gone, the fact that we still made the quarterfinals of the Champions League and are playing against Real Madrid, I think is something that fans should be excited about, because it shows progression over last season again as well. It's one more step. I think a lot of fans would be more confident if we didn't have the fitness issues that we had. But despite that, again, this is where you want to be and where we should be if we're serious in how the project needs to go. We should be, at bare minimum, making the quarterfinals of the Champions League every single year. If that's the ambition of the club, if that's the ambition of the kind of players we want to bring in, if it's the ambition of the players we already have, players like, Saka, Saliba, Rice, Odegaard, this is the level they should be playing in every season, right? So, yeah, no, I'm quite excited about it. The one thing I would say is if the stars line and we get past Real Madrid, I just don't want to get knocked up by Unai Emery in the semifinals. Because at that point, I think we should all just pack it in and never kind of show our faces again. But we'll save that for another time. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. And it's the same thing. It's a similar mentality that I have with the PSV matches. If no one can be sad if we get knocked out by Real Madrid. I think that's kind of it. So just enjoy the two-legged tie, enjoy the spectacle, enjoy being back in the position where we're playing against the likes of Real Madrid in the knockout stage of the Champions League. And just take it from there. If we get knocked out, if we could get blown away, it's fine. Like, again, this is their competition. They've won it an ungodly amount of times. They often do it controversially, which we're going to have to mention at some point this podcast.
Let's do it now.
Well, yeah, we can do it now. But again, I'm excited about it. But in terms of controversy, I remember sitting there watching it. I was just like, there's no way that got chalked off. I don't know a single person that cited the correct ruling about a double touch on a penalty. Everyone just assumed they would just retake it, because that's what happens when goalies cheat the line on a penalty. It gets retaken, right?
Yeah,
so
Courtois off the line.
Yeah, so why on earth are the rules different for the shooter and the keeper? And it's also interesting because in the World Cup, one of Argentina's penalties against, was it Spain? I can't remember. One of theirs was actually a double touch, and it wasn't reviewed, didn't go to VAR, didn't get reviewed. It just stood. There wasn't even a conversation about it. And I think the touch was so minimal. A, it didn't change the direction of Julian Alvarez's strike on the ball in the first place. And B, no player tries to intentionally double touch the ball anyway, because when you do, you balloon it over the bar or you shank it wide. So if it's that inconsequential, allow the players to take it. And it's ironic, because I was on shift today and the news came in that all of a sudden now UEFA are having a meeting about maybe changing the ruling, ironically, just after it benefits Real Madrid. So go figure. But I think the backlash was correct. Like, even if it's in the ruling, yeah, sure. If you want to be that hardline on the rule that any double touch results in, the goal, if it's scored, being null and void, fine. But this is a conversation that should have happened ages ago, and you can't give that kind of advantage in a shootout to the keeper over the shooter, where the keeper can cheat, and then it gets retaken. But at that point, when it gets retaken, there's more pressure on the shooter, like, to score the penalty again. Yeah. Right. So why shouldn't there be more pressure on the keeper to save another penalty opportunity if there's kind of a foul shot, we'll call it, or whatever. But it just sucks. I think Simeone's reaction was not unexpected. Real's counter argument about Atleti always crying is also not unexpected, I guess. But I guess it's one of those things where, like, that Real Madrid juju definitely exists, because how often do you ever see this happen? I don't remember, So yeah, but I don't know if you had any thoughts on it yourself. I don't know if you saw it live or not, but
Yeah. I was watching it. Actually, it was funny. I was at the office late last night, and my wife texted me, and she was like, "Are you coming home at some point? It's like almost 7." And I was like, "Wait. I'm watching the penalty shootout between Real and Atleti. I'm not actually doing any work. I'm just watching this."
Jesus. You're gonna get served papers at some point, buddy. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, I did everything I had to do, and then everyone left, and it was 6 p.m. So I put my feet up on my desk and I watched Champions because I wasn't going to watch it like on the train home.
Good point. Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, I was watching it, and I remember, Alvarez scored it, and then they played the replay, and they were talking about the double touch, and then they're like, "Is the referee gonna is he gonna negate it? Is he gonna chalk it off?" And I'm just saying, just like, no, he's just going to allow it, whatever. And then he straight up was just waving his arms and saying it doesn't count. And I was like, okay, cool. So he's going to come back and take it again. And then we just moved on. And I was saying that just like, am I taking crazy pills? Like I've never seen that happen in my life. And like you said, Of course it happens for Real Madrid. So I think it's really funny that maybe the team with, just this dark magic that favors them in the Champions League is going up against a team that maybe has some of the most unfortunate things happen to them every season. Very, very unstoppable object meets a movable, or unstoppable force meets a movable object is what it feels like. But so hopefully we don't have to deal with any nonsense like that. Something tells me we will. And we'll see what happens there. But I honestly, I'm not even sure if there's a double touch at this point. And
there was. I mean, a lot of video evidence came out today where it showed that there are some people still arguing that even with the zoomed in camera angle, that it could have just been the turf that popped up just enough to move it. And it wasn't actually Alvarez's boot. To me, after seeing exhausted amount of replays and zoomed in pictures, it looks like the boot did catch it, but it was such a minuscule touch. It to me, it's just ludicrous that they still chalked it off, because when something that is that minute, it didn't actually play a handed role in the goal. I just think it's a bit much. But again, letter of the law, totally fine. But I do think it's a law that needs to be changed for next season.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, that'll be an instruction on the training grounds from Arteta. If we have to take penalties, please do not double touch. Please don't slide. Make sure the grass is as dry as possible. But yeah, tell you what, before we get out of here, why don't we preview Chelsea real quick on Sunday, and then we'll put a bow on this thing.
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, so we're playing Chelsea on Sunday. They're coming to the Emirates. Last time out, we beat them 5-0. Unfortunately, the guy who scored two of those goals, well, one of the guys who scored 2 goals will not be there. The other one is just coming back from fitness, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to this one, because I think Chelsea are one of the teams in the Premier League, one of the few teams in the Premier League that are willing to play away against us. That makes it easier for us to play our game, right? It just feels like every week now we're up against a low block or a mid block, and we have to play through it, and it's a slog. I think Chelsea are just going to try to come at us, and obviously they have some pieces that we have to be wary of. Wait, is Nicholas Jackson still out?
Honest to God, I don't remember. He didn't play today. Pedro Neto started at 9 today. Again, they heavily rotated the team. Let me check. I can just check right now. I think he's out. He is out until April.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Madueke is also out. Malo Gusto's doubtful. But yeah, I mean, we'll come up against a lot of the typical, Nkunku will probably back in 11, Reece James will start, Cole Palmer will start. None of those guys started today against Schopenhaven. So yeah, it'll be an interesting test for sure.
Yeah, and Cole Palmer is probably the player that you worry about the most, but he's been on a bit of a cold streak recently. I don't think he's scored since like January, right?
I think he has no goals in his last 9. I'd have to look it up. So if you hear me clicking on my computer, this is precisely what I'm doing.
Okay.
But he's in a very large dry spell at the moment. And ironically enough, I think it's one of those moments where you could, depending on who's fit and available, you could argue that maybe you just throw Rice on him at 6 for 90 minutes and ask him to deal with one of the best 6 midfielders in Europe at the moment. But that's a passing thought.
Yeah, I definitely think this is a Rice at 6 game, which means we're going to see Party there. But yeah, I think as long as we keep our heads and people do their jobs defensively, this should be a win, right? Because I think Cole Palmer is, unless we give him unless we give him every opportunity to do so, I don't think Cole Palmer is going to suddenly reignite his form against us. Pedro Neto, outside of the away fixture against them earlier this year, hasn't really been great. That midfield is on and off. Sometimes Caicedo shows up. Sometimes I think he, really gets a little, I don't want to say embarrassed, but he gets overcome. And that defense is really not all that intimidating to me. And then who are they starting? Is it still Sanchez? Yeah, they're still starting Sanchez in goal, I think, and Sanchez.
It's either Sanchez or Jorgensen, neither of which. I mean, they don't have like a first choice keeper at this point. Like every time I'm at work, we see news come in that says Maresca has to choose between 3 keepers because all 3 of them just aren't good enough for Chelsea, essentially. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, all in all, like there's a reason why they've fallen off recently. It feels like ancient history when they were being mentioned as maybe being in the title race. I think those days are long gone, and they're just trying to scramble for a top 4 place. So yeah, I think it'll be a fun match, and I honestly think that Arsenal will be really motivated to put a win up on the board, and especially against Chelsea. So. We'll see. I'm pretty confident, and we've rested a lot of our key players, so I think we'll be fresh for it as well. But how are you feeling? And are there any matchups or any players in particular on the Chelsea side that you're concerned about?
No, I think even though they still managed to get some wins recently, I struggle to find any player that's an attacking threat that has been consistent of late. I mean the Caicedo Fernandez midfield duo has actually been very, very good. I think that's essentially why they're winning matches. A lot of that's coming down to with how well those guys have pressed, how well those guys have driven the team forward in transition. That's going to be the biggest question for me, is how the midfield battle for me wins the match against them. I think I'm not too concerned with them in terms of how well we defend. Ironically enough, I think we've have near identical attacking numbers this season, but our defense is demonstrably better than theirs. And I don't fear running our back four, but even if Reece James starts again, he's also been very, very inconsistent. I think Cucurella has had a better season this year than last year, but still, I think he's good for a bonehead player too.
Yeah.
The center backs don't help me. In fact, if Marino was to start, I think he would actually have somewhat of the run of the mill in terms of his ability in the air, comparing to Tosin or Levi Colwell if he starts. So, Sanchez. Does not do that. That's
right. Oh, right. Yeah. They yeah.
And ironically, he's been better there after leaving. So there you go. I think I think the question is going to be, I think Cole Palmer will be the question. If we struggle to cut off supply to him from the midfield, I think we actually might struggle, depending on who we actually play there in our own sixth position. But apart from that, with everyone coming back at a good time, I probably wouldn't be shocked with the draw. I probably would be a little bit disappointed with the draw as well. But I don't think we'll lose. But again, I think the question for us is going to be, will we find goals? Like which Arsenal turns up at the weekend? Are we going to be creative enough where we actually tuck the chances away or not. Or it's going to be one of those days where we're kind of like just struggling, we're like begging for an equalizer in the last 20 minutes. I don't really know. Again, yeah, I don't think we'll lose. I'm not necessarily worried per se. I just think I think the onus is on us to find the result. And I think if we don't, it's probably because we played quite poorly rather than Chelsea outplaying us, per se. So
yeah. I definitely think that's in the range of outcomes for sure, pretty strongly. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just I'm quietly confident. Also, I feel like there's something to be said about maybe the pressure being off from the title race, and now it's just the extremely faint threat of crashing out of the top 4, top 5, depending on what happens.
I don't think we're crashing out of the top. I think that would take a massive dip in form for us to do that. I think too many other clubs are there's too many clubs fighting for the top 5 that can cause damage to the other clubs fighting for the top 5 as to where I don't think we'll drop out.
Yeah.
It also stands to reason that our home record is we only lost once at home this season in the Premier League, and Chelsea, I think they've dropped points in 8 of the 14 matches away from Stamford Bridge. I think you have 6 wins, 3 draws, and 5 losses, I think it is. Yeah. So I do think we have the advantage, but I wouldn't be... It's hard because on paper, Chelsea have at least the names to cause damage, but they themselves have been so painfully inconsistent of late that I'm way less worried about them currently than I would be. If they were in form, I would probably say I wouldn't be shocked if we lost at the weekend. But again, we're at home. I think that the shot about less pressure with the title race, I think, is actually a really good call. That definitely could help. Also, think that there's something to be said about the fact that a lot of the players could be bolstered by the fact that we just made the quarterfinals in the Champions League. That also will boost morale, I think, quite a bit, given the way the season has gone. So, yeah, I would say at worst we draw, but I do think maybe we'll have like a narrow 2-1 win or something like that, and I think that'd be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like last year where we just steamrolled them. But yeah, I think maybe like a 2-1, 2-0 win, something like that could be very well in the cards. But we'll see. We'll go ahead and knock this one on the head and get out of here. But thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it. And yeah. Just thank you for spending this time with us. We, it really does mean a lot for us to have you guys listening. So you can follow the pod on Twitter at NotThatGooner. You can follow the pod on Blue Sky at notthatgooner.bsky.social. We're on Instagram at NotThatKindOfGooner. We have a YouTube channel, Not That Kind of Gooner. There's an email address in the information section for this podcast. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts on how we can improve, we're always looking at how to do that. And I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamstill. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Shamstill.bsky.social. With Drew, you can follow him on Twitter at GeeChyKid and on Blue Sky at supplyanddemanddrew.bsky.social. And John, you can follow him at 305cast on Twitter and at yellowribbons.bsky.social. So those are all the social media handles. So please go check those out. And we will be back with you probably on Monday after hopefully a win against Chelsea. I would love another 5-0 win. That would be fun. We'll see if that happens. But until then, take care and bye. Bye.
Secret Gooner. All right, I'm a Gooner. Oh, I love you.
With a minute to go. Here's the Mediterranean. Santi Cazorla. Kayo Saka.